Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining with us on another episode of What About Jesus with Gene and Grady. And I just appreciate the opportunity to share with you, as we have in the past few weeks, on things of life. And this week we want to kind of look at, or not look at, because it's going to be kind of hard to look at, discuss Kevin's sermon from last Sunday, where he talked about Jesus in John chapter 14 being the way, the truth, and the life. And in his name, that's Jesus' name, we can have life. And I just thought it was interesting the way Kevin started it out, is that God is at work within us. So, but what stood out to you in Kevin's sermon?
Yeah, I was sick on Sunday. That's why I wasn't there for those who were and didn't see me there. I kind of got what everyone is getting around. And so I got the opportunity to go and listen to it online, and I really enjoyed it. And so those who don't get to go, or those who are there and maybe, just was kind of out of touch, I really encourage you to go back and listen to it. It's really fruitful to go back and really process the words that Kevin said. But the thing that stood out to me is when he brought up the passage from Isaiah 53.
Okay.
And again, right, Isaiah 53 is all about kind of prophesying Jesus and prophesying the New Testament, right? And when he went into that passage and kind of talking about how the suffering that Jesus and God go through is for us, right?
Right. So in that, Kevin shared with us from Isaiah 53. He was talking about substitutionary atonement.
Yeah.
Where God takes Jesus and puts him on the cross in the place of us, who should have been on the cross because of being separated from God because of sin. But God looked at us and says, I'm doing this because I love you. I'm doing this because you're worth it. My son is the perfect sacrifice.
Yeah.
And thank goodness that Jesus, because I don't think any of us, I think if you combined all of mankind together, wouldn't be perfect to be on the cross.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we deserve to be, but God said no. Jesus is the perfect sacrifice.
Yeah.
So that helps me kind of evaluate or look within myself, because there are times I feel like I'm not worthy to be called a child of God.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure that your teenagers in your youth group probably have expressed that in actual words or in conduct. But what do you do? How do you help them? I mean, do they express this type of?
Yeah, of course. What we see is when we go on the church camps and retreats and mission trips, we see that those scenarios really provide a different type of comfort for these kids, to where they really dive into themselves and break down and rely on one another, and not necessarily like confessing, but just kind of talking about what is going on in their lives to one another. They feel really safe on these events, which is really good.
Right.
That's the goal of what our youth group is. But what we see is when these kids start breaking down, a lot of the times it's more like, okay, like I know when I devote myself to Christ and to that Christian walk, right, I'm supposed to try and do what I can to live a perfect life, right? God and as we walk through our Christianity, we want to strive for perfection, right? We want to strive to be like Christ. Sorry. And a lot of the times they kind of they get really down on themselves. Am I doing the right thing? I feel like I mess up a lot. I feel like I sin a lot, or I'm getting in a deep rut. And a lot of the times what we say to them is that we should be celebrating. We should be comforted by the fact that Jesus died on the cross for us, and he died on the cross for us because he loves us. Right? We can't hold that guilt above our heads because he made that choice because he loves us. Not necessarily they did it because of us, but more rather than that deep love that Father Father type love that he has for us, and find comfort in that, and find comfort in that in our Christian walk.
Yeah, because every time God looks down on us, he sees his son Jesus, and we may feel like that we're never worthy of the gift, but in God's eyes, we are worth it. And I hope that each of us will understand the importance of that, and I'm sure the disciples did too, because when Jesus was sharing this on that night that he was betrayed and to be crucified, or the night before his crucifixion, he was telling them that he was going away, that they couldn't come, but he was going to prepare a place for them. And then, of course, Thomas goes, well, we don't know where you're going. How do we know to get there?
Yeah.
And then Jesus says, Thomas, you do know, because I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so we can find hope in Jesus. And I couldn't help but think about the disciples, when that night there was probably a lot of anxiety going on amongst them because Jesus says, I'm going away. And all they wanted to do is just hang out with him, be with him. And I was thinking, man, how cool that would be to be in that time with Jesus, sitting around the fire, talking about life and what God is like. But even today, I think we can do that if we do it spiritually speaking. We can have that same experience the disciples had, but it's getting rid of our focus of the worldly things and focusing on the spiritual things.
Yeah, for sure.
So in this, he says, I am. So he spoke of several I am statements. And what does that say to you in regards to those I am statements?
It's really comforting. It provides a sense of security against all the things that we need in our lives, or the things that we tend to lack or even struggle with. Like, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Like, the things that we struggle with in our lives, we can cast that onto Christ and cast our burdens onto Christ, because he is, right? Let go and let God do his work, and let him bear that fruit that we so desperately need in our lives.
Yeah, because I think Kevin brought this up in his sermon. He said, there is no sin so dark that the blood of Jesus cannot cleanse.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful to me, because we often just dwell in that thought of that sin that we've committed, and we forget that we've been forgiven.
Yeah.
We kind of cling to that thought, and I think that's the handiwork of the devil, to have us focus on our past when we have a brighter future in Jesus.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, God's not even, he goes, what sin? When he forgives us, he doesn't keep a record of it.
Yeah.
So I hope you viewers and listeners will understand that God's not keeping records of any of the sins that he has forgiven you on. Matter of fact, he's said in his word more than once that I don't want any of my children to die in their wickedness. I would rather have them repent and live. And so I think that's why Jesus came.
Yeah.
So we can live.
For sure. Like, I think he talks about it, or it's talked about in Micah 6, right? Like around 6 through 8. If you should mark iniquities, who could stand? Right? Like, if God did keep a record of wrongs, which he totally could, right? Like, he definitely has every right to keep a record of wrongs that we do. no one could stand.
No,
right?
no.
Like no one could stand on that judgment day if he brings out that book and is like, look at this,
Right.
like this is everything you did wrong. We couldn't possibly stand, but we have such a good and such a gracious God who celebrates our victories, so greatly and loves us so much, so much so that he sends his own son, and the entire goal is just to spend eternity and have that intimate relationship with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And it's just, that it just all circulates back to, look, I am, right? And these points that he's making is he can wipe away anything that we could ever possibly struggle with.
And man, how comforting that is.
Yeah.
To know that every wrong we've done, when God forgives, why are we clinging to it if God's not clinging to it?
Yeah.
And so don't let the devil fool you to think that he's telling you you're not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, none of us are worthy. But when God looks at us, he's saying you're worth it
Mm-hmm.
because I love you.
Yeah.
And I hope our viewers and listeners will cling to that and recognize what God is doing in you, and never hold back what God has placed in you.
Yeah.
To share Jesus with someone close to you. And I hope each and every one of us will take our lives now and go forth and do the good. I like that phrase I hear on the radio. If there's no good people in this world, if you can't find one, then be one.
Yep.
So let's go and be that good person God has called us to be. So thank you for joining with us on another episode of What About Jesus. We'll share more in the future as Kevin shares with us, and hopefully we can just flesh this out and live for Jesus as we are to be. So thank you all. I'm Gene.
I'm Grady.
Have a great and blessed week.